Welcome to the SprocketPod, your podcast for helpful HubSpot content. I'm Cameron Collins, and alongside my co-host Mark Lerner, we sit down each week with experts on the HubSpot CRM to break down cool builds and unique apps that will make your instance better. Whether you're a new admin or you're a business owner looking to get the most out of HubSpot, our conversations are going to provide you with unique insights that you can apply. Don't forget, we host the SprocketPod live on LinkedIn every week, and you can catch all of our episodes on YouTube and Spotify. Let's dive into today's episode and get you working smarter with HubSpot. Hello and welcome indeed to another episode of the SprocketPod. I am so excited for today's episode. If this is your first time watching, thank you very much for tuning in. My name is Cameron Collins. I am a revenue operations strategist. I live and breathe HubSpot, and every week we interview members of the HubSpot community. This week, we are interviewing Ryan Ginsberg and building a very exciting app together. Ryan, welcome to the show.
Hey, Cameron, thanks for the invite. Happy to be here.
Yeah. So for those who aren't familiar with you, haven't seen you in the Sprocketeer community, and if they're not following you on LinkedIn, tell everyone just a little bit about yourself and Unified Support Solutions before we dive into the building of the Coffee Chat app.
Sounds great. Yeah. So my name is Ryan. I founder, owner, solopreneur of Unified Support Solutions. I started my company about 3 years ago, knowing that businesses need skilled, crafty, handy individuals to jump into really any system, especially HubSpot, to kind of wrangle it, get it under control, but also to leverage some of the new technology stack that's been introduced into our world, like AI. So we'll be showing you some cool things that AI is capable of.
And today's episode is really interesting because we're actually not going to be in HubSpot as we build this app. We're building something externally, but I think that this episode is going to be really relevant because one question that a lot of admin are asking themselves is, how do I use AI more for my role in being an admin? And what we're going to be building is the Coffee Chat app that is used in the Sprocketeer community. But the main takeaway for everybody listening, I think, is really, how can you take these concepts? How can you follow the steps that we're going to be showing today in building this app and apply it to building things in HubSpot? Because Ryan, I know this is something you're really talented at. You build apps in HubSpot all the time. And it's following a process that's very similar, if not exact, to what we're doing today, right?
Very similar. It's just a matter of knowing where you're going to build it. Where does it need to be hosted? What sort of infrastructure is needed to support it? So there is a blend of both experience that I bring to the table. So understanding how all the pieces fit together, just from a technology perspective, being in the space for 10 years. But now that we have access to new tools, and those tools have incredible capabilities, it's really about like the speed in which you can prototype and execute. Leveraging those tools it's wild, absolutely wild. Things that it's not that I wouldn't be able to do, but the time and value, the math didn't make sense. I would probably never spend my time building a Coffee Chat app in my spare time, right? Unless, of course, I was able to do it in a matter of a day. That's kind of why we're here and why I'm able to, I think, add value, more value now than I ever could as a developer.
Yeah, well, and for everyone listening, stay tuned over the next 45 minutes. We're going to be building this Coffee Chat app together, but everything really started here with LinkedIn. Massive shout out to Ryan, to you, and to the community as a whole, because all of this started off with a post just asking a call to the community, hey, can anybody help me to set up a Coffee Chat system for the Sprocketeer community? And Ryan, you answered that call. So thank you for jumping in and, getting us to where we are now, where we do have a Coffee Chat system in Sprocketeer, and we're going to be rebuilding the app from scratch together here.
Yeah. So yeah, once you reached out, Cameron, I always, I love supporting you. I love supporting the community. And I thought this was a great way for me to, one, test my skill set and give back in a meaningful way. And so I reached out to you actually here on Slack directly saying, hey, what are you trying to do with Zapier? And you provided me with a bunch of context, right? And I mean, I started with this. We're going to dive right in. It's like, hey, what are your requirements? What are you trying to do with Zapier? And literally all I did is I think I copied this particular text and I put it into my Claude. And I was like, okay, what should help me build this app? That's literally what I am pretty sure that I did. And you can see in my response, okay, MVP coffee chat system. Here's what we need. And your original plan, right, as we go through it, right, you wanted to use Zapier. And we started going down that path. And I saw this. I'm like, this is kind of maybe how you would approach or solve problems maybe maybe a year ago. But I think there are better ways, and also ways to allow for this app to be installed on other Slack instances or to be leveraged by other Slack community owners. And so that's pretty much, this was a lot of context, a lot of information that was provided. And that's where we started. So here's what Claude kind of comes back to me with. It's like, okay, we need a data source. We need to do some random pairing logic. We need notifications. How do users get added to the Google Sheet? How should the pairing happen? So a lot of the work that I do, is requirements gathering and really just asking the stakeholders, what are your expectations? What is the outcome that you're trying to achieve? And after several of those conversations, we're able to come to some agreed upon future state. So here we're going to kind of start the process. I know that I want to not use Zapier. I know that I want to use Replit, an incredible application builder, full stack app builder that supports databases, that supports hosting, supports all the infrastructure, and has integrated AI agent and assistant capabilities. So this is kind of the tool that I've decided to use. And we're going to focus primarily on our requirements. So let's see here, our data source. So we're going to say I want to use Replit as the application builder. So we're not going to use a Google Sheet. We're not going to use Zapier. This means that we're going to need to collect and store information, right? So we're going to need a database.
And the really cool thing about this is the fact that my initial requirement was really just, I want an app that's going to connect Sprocketeers in the Slack community. And you're a fan of Replit because you can build entire apps without having to code it. Whereas going into Zapier or Make, anything like that, you do have to go in and there's a lot of setup. And so what's really neat as I'm watching you go through this process is you're taking the requirement that I gave and saying, great, now let's make it my own and make it even better.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm kind of at a place in how I think about problems is I don't like UI builders or drag and drop editors. I think they solve a need for maybe non-technical users, but it's still a highly technical system, and debugging, troubleshooting, and testing all become a little bit more painful in those environments. In this environment, you still have that, but you do have a lot more flexibility to work around those challenges. So I said I want to use Replit as the application builder. This means we'll need a database to store user information. We know it will be integrated with Slack. We will need to integrate with Slack. And what that means is I know, because I kind of just know this from experience, but it's in order for Slack and an app to talk to each other, we need some type of authentication system. So OAuth is going to be a requirement, and you're going to need to do some setup on the Slack side to collect your OAuth private keys and tokens so that you can do a secure handoff and also do permission granting and those types of things. I hope we get to that point in this process, but for right now, we're really going to refine the requirements. We're going to refine the official prompt that will then feed into Replit. So we know we'll need to integrate with Slack using OAuth and permissions. What else do we need to ask here? So we want probably the usernames of the users. I know there's one feature missing from the current build is, collect time zones. We want the pairing system to be time zone aware. And that was my first group that I got paired with, right? We had a time zone in Australia, East Coast and West Coast. It's like no one could meet the first week. So that was important. We want to track each week, right? We want to track each week who has opted in versus opted out. We want to track who got paired each week, right? We also want to send a message, asking users to opt in. We want to notify users that we've received, they're opt in or opt out. So they're called ephemeral messages in the Slack world. So to do something like that, I'm trying to think, we need to notify the group of users that got paired, right? Paired. Additionally, we need a landing page, right? For other people to, go visit the page and install the app.
So for the admin to be able to go in and set it up, for sure.
To set up and configure, you got to specify which channel do you want these messages to go to, where are you going to do all of your reporting and analytics to just check in on how things are doing.
A way to start, stop, pause automation.
Very good. Yeah, a way to start, stop, pause, and even test, right? We have test buttons to make sure that our integration is working, our OAuth flow is working.
Now, for everyone who's watching this, we're taking the initial requirements and the initial prompts. Ryan and I are now going through, we're creating a longer list of more robust requirements that we can pop into Claude and have it give us back something that we can then plug into Replit to build this app. And so I think that one thing that is very important for those of us who might be doing this for the first time with anything we're building, it's important to remember that you might be having a lot of dialogue and back and forth with Claude, and you're building and you're testing and you're going back and forth to get these requirements. Of course, Ryan, you've built the coffee chat, and so we've got an idea of our more comprehensive list of requirements. But the first time you did this, I think you mentioned that there was a lot more back and forth to even get to like this list of requirements.
Tons, right? I think if we were to start kind of here, you provided a ton, you provided a ton of context that really helped me refine my prompt. And I think, I probably did a few rounds of it. Replit did a pretty good job on the initial build to kind of build out 60-70% of the structure. And then the rest of it was just kind of like connecting the pieces and then adding any sort of like user feedback suggestions or any type of bugs or issues that came up. So surprisingly enough, Replit did a pretty powerful first pass at everything, but you are correct. We need a good prompt in the beginning to get Replit to kind of do its thing. And what I also like to do is, I've kind of like very simply wrote down my requirements. And then I think like the first thing that I'll ask Claude to do, first, I want you to write a Replit prompt for the above. Like that's what I'm going to have it just do. So it has context of the original requirements. It has kind of like my new requirements that I provided it. And now it's going to go build a coffee chat pairing system, right? So user management and database, we're going to track user information, preferences, settings, weekly opt-in and out, pairing history, track all the participation patterns over time. It'll integrate with Slack with the ability to read profiles, send direct messages, post messages to channels, and read channel information. All of this is what we need for OAuth to work because we're going to be requesting permissions to do those things, and the admin of the Slack account needs to grant those permissions to the app. We've got time zone aware pairing with configurable groups. So it could be admin level setting. We're going to take time zones into consideration, weekly workflow automation, send like what's going to happen every week. We'll send a message to users asking if they want to participate. The admin dashboard landing page, right? All of this stuff is being figured out. Now, what I'd like to do at the end is like ask it, like, can you think of anything this app might be missing? So it's like the counter argument to have it maybe reassess, like what else might be some good features and functionalities. Look at that, onboarding and user experience. So do people know what to do or what to expect when they log into the app or when they see that first message? Improving how things get paired, communication enhancements, admin tools, data and privacy, reliability and monitoring. So this is all really great. I think it's a little bit too much at once. So I'm going to pare it back and say, please update the prompt and try to focus on an MVP, an minimal viable product, to get the bare minimum working successfully. So it's like, again, I'm kind of massaging kind of like my output into something that I think a Replit can consume and be successful at as a primary step. This is great. Yeah. So we are literally going to copy and paste this into Replit. And that's what's wild about the whole world we're living in now. It's just so exciting because, I mean, the amount of effort that it would take. So yeah, I'm going to copy this. We're going to go ahead and create, and we're going to auto theme this. We're building a web app, and we're just going to paste that in here and start the chat. I think it's just wild, like the fact that that's all I have to do. And now this is where the fun, I mean, I wouldn't say fun, but I think what I did is I did this and I went and did something else. I like left and I maybe checked on it maybe 4 or 5 hours later. And there were some things that I had to confirm and whatnot, but yeah, I let it do its thing.
And so the process of actually building an app we've seen here is fairly straightforward. Now, at this point, Replit's going to run, it's going to do its thing, and it may take 20 minutes, an hour, 4 hours, however long, depending on how complex the app is, it varies. At some point, we may get an output that we can test here and even showcase in this episode. But I want to come back a few steps because this is obviously a really exciting way to see how easy it is to build literally anything using a couple prompts with a GPT, plug it into an app like Replit, who is not sponsoring this episode, but I welcome you if you want to. But, plug it into an app like Replit, and the output is an app. So obviously here we're building the coffee chat app that's used in the Sprocketeer community to connect HubSpot admin with one another. What are some examples of building apps in HubSpot that you could take this exact process and things that you've done for clients and partners, building them apps that actually have been used inside of HubSpot or in the HubSpot ecosystem?
Okay. So in the context of like Replit, man, I haven't built many HubSpot apps using Replit other than, I should say, hey, I'll do a little plug here. Might as well. My Meeting Sync Pro app was built entirely off of Replit. It is hosted and managed and maintained by Replit entirely. And Meeting Sync Pro was my very first app that I built this year as kind of a goal. It's like, I want a HubSpot app and I want it to solve a real pain point. So this pain point is HubSpot's native calendar integration with Google will not sync your recurring meetings into your HubSpot account. And so we built a sync engine that allows you to connect to your Google Calendar via OAuth, connect to HubSpot via OAuth, and the middleware, or essentially this app, is tracking meetings in both systems, And we're taking into consideration the meeting that gets created natively by the HubSpot Google integration, checking if it's a recurring meeting, and then syncing user-defined events 30, 60, 90 days into the future. We're also maintaining those relationships. So if a meeting in Google moves, or if a meeting in HubSpot moves that is recurring, we're going to kind of capture those as webhooks and then update accordingly the system. So this is my very first HubSpot app that I built. It's not hosted, or it's not published on the marketplace, just because I don't want to go through those processes unless absolutely needed. But you can install this today and get recurring meetings for your customer support teams or your account management teams directly into HubSpot, because I know that was a pain point people have mentioned to me before.
I think that's so powerful, because it really goes to show that if you are an admin, you're in the ecosystem, as we both are and as our listeners are. And oftentimes we identify pain points and then we go looking for solutions, and there's over 2,000 apps that plug into HubSpot. I'm sure there's many more that aren't even on the app store, similar to Meeting Sync Pro. But if you can dream of a solution, you can go into a GPT, create some prompts, and then go into an app like Replit and very easily create your own solution for the ecosystem.
It's wild, kind of extending onto that. I've been working on a few other systems on the side as well. This isn't necessarily with Replit, but this is, using an IDE with Claude Code kind of built in. So Claude Code and then Claude on the browser are like different things, but somewhat still the same. But I'm building Python scripts now in my local environment to connect to a HubSpot account. And like the one that I just built over the last few days that I'm really excited about is a workflow audit tool. And it's like, well, I know MCP exists, but it's just not quite there yet on capturing like workflow schema. It's also very challenging to get, if you have an account with 200 plus workflows, like how do you audit that successfully? How do you understand its impact across your account, across objects, across your business operations? It's like a difficult problem for a human to solve, but it's actually quite easy for AI to solve. And so I built, a local functioning script that maybe one day I'll turn into an app, but it fetches all of your workflows, and the API will return kind of a JSON schema of that workflow, the enrollment criteria, the branching logic, the different actions that it does, like all of that's written in code and can be fetched. And you can shove that into an AI with a good detailed prompt, and you can prompt over it, right? Over each workflow, and then prompt and store data and do other prompts and get an output that is actually like, here is your workflow analysis based on actual workflow data. And to do that in a matter of minutes is just wild.
It's incredible.
So we actually hit a point where we do need to do a few setup things, which we will walk through. I think this is a good thing. So it's like, hey, I started building 3 minutes ago. I'm going to build it. Now I need to work on the Slack OAuth credentials before starting implementation. Here's what you're going to do. So it even gives you like, okay, like you need these things. Here's how you grab it. So I'm going to go click on Slack. Here's my existing one. So we're going to go create a new app from scratch. This is going to be, what do we want to call this, Cameron?
Updated coffee chat app.
Updated coffee chat app.
My naming conventions are not known for being exciting and original.
I have my coffee chat app, and what is it asking for? It wants my Slack bot token, my Slack client ID, and my Slack client secret. So here's my signing secret here. Paste that there. Here's client secret. Actually, that's the one that I probably need, is that one there. Verification token, client ID, definitely need that. And the Slack bot token. I'm trying to remember where that comes from. App level, generate tokens. And that's exactly where we get stuck, is like it starts with XOXB. So let's see if we can generate this bot token. I don't think that's the one that we want. So this is where we probably can go and say like, okay, where do we get this? Because I don't remember. I'm going to take
a great example of how even going through these steps, I know I have oftentimes run into blockers trying to find little pieces of information. And when I get stuck, I just go back to the GPT and say, hey, you're telling me I need this piece of information. Where do I get it? How do I generate it? And it's usually very good about walking me through the steps. And so taking back to those of us who are admin, where we're trying to find ways to incorporate artificial intelligence, we're incorporating GPTs and apps like Replit into the things we do in HubSpot. I think it's really important for everyone to remember, like, don't be scared of this stuff. When you're told to go track down some obscure piece of information that you've never heard of in an app for the first time, just go ahead and ask how you get that information, and it'll walk you through those steps.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, we used to do it back in the day. We used to Google things, right? When we didn't know or we needed to research something. It's like, you can still Google it, but like you can also ChatGPT it or LLM it and get meaningful answers that will unblock you, that will help you break through that moment where you're like, I don't know something, but once you do it, then you know.
And that's exactly what you just did here, getting unblocked, finding the answers, getting those pieces of information so you can set up your IDs and start the setup of the app. So I know that we just plugged in some info, but in a nutshell, walk us through what Replit just had you doing.
Yes. So I kind of, I let Replit do its thing on the left here. So you needed to navigate to OAuth and permissions, and you needed to add scopes. So that's what we did. And we added essentially the ability for when the OAuth happens, the ability for the app to read users, the ability for it to write to chats, and the ability for it to read channels. And so I went here to OAuth and permissions. I scrolled down. Here's the scopes. I added the different scopes. After creating the scopes, I needed to install the app into my workspace. And once I did that, it then generated my bot user OAuth token, which now I can then copy that and paste that into Replit. So was able to kind of unblock myself there. And we have to repaste these client secret. We want the client ID. And we want the client secret. Continue. So I've saved those. Now, this is another important thing, is like, if you've never been in the development world, right? We are working on a real server, a real application. There are real security measures that need to go into place. One of those security measures is protecting your environment variables, your secrets. So built into Replit is an entire secrets manager where you are securely storing these values in an environment section, and the application is pulling those in programmatically at the server level safely. And I think recently they did introduce test and production environments. So you have secrets at different layers. You also have test and production databases, all very valuable things, none of which that I built in the original Coffee Chat app, because it's a little bit simpler, easier to maintain, and not really filled with a lot of sensitive or confidential information that I needed to be worried about. But all of that's built in. So as long as you understand, like, do not hard code your environment variables into your app, use the environment framework, environment variables like features, and it guides you through that, right? It's just, it asked for 3 secrets requested. I provided them. It's saving those automatically for you.
And I think that's a really big call out, where understanding security and data practice is such a big deal. And there's a lot of admin like myself who are very strategic when it comes to setting up HubSpot, and we're analyzing data. And so we're a little bit less versed sometimes on the technical side. But one of the things that I've learned from talking to so many members of the community and getting more involved on the technical side myself is data privacy really matters. Like, not sharing your HubSpot secrets and your keys to your instance, it's really important, because I used to think, well, what's somebody going to do with this? And then I was shown, no, actually, people can take your secret and plug it into code and basically hack. It's how hacking works. Then now they have access to all your data in HubSpot. And so security measures are very real. And as admin, we need to take them seriously, even if you're still learning the technical side and you don't fully understand it. Becoming versed with developers and meeting developers and having conversations like this is
so helpful. The ability to understand what developers do on a day-to-day basis and why security is important. It's going to be so important as an admin to understand. It's like, I believe, HubSpot, right, has new field types, right? Secure properties, confidential PII properties, and those have different permissions from an API access standpoint. So yeah, it's very important. And I say that it's like funny because here I am like showing my client ID and secret on a recorded call. You probably want to blur that out, but
I'm not blurring it.
I'm not at risk though. Like, that's the kind of thing. It's like, you can't do anything with this information for the app that we're building. So, but if you're building real production stuff, 100% need to be very cautious.
And again, we blur all the sensitive information for the episode, but you can imagine taking the equivalent information where if you're building a custom coded setup in HubSpot and you have your secrets and you expose those, you give them to somebody that's not at your organization or company. Again, people can actually use that to write code, write scripts, and then they can access data inside of your HubSpot account. So that's why if you're in an account and you've ever set up a custom coded workflow and you have secrets in there and you get those emails every 3 to 6 months that say to rotate your access tokens, making sure that you're updating your secrets, you're updating your privacy measures, very important. So while Replit does its thing, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on artificial intelligence inside of HubSpot. Obviously, we're building an app that is external. You could build apps that serve any number of solutions, but I know that you have become pretty versed in testing the limits of Breeze, and you've done some pretty cool things, including, I know we talked about exporting JSON properties and importing them to other records. So I'd love for you to just tell the audience, while Replit does its thing, a little bit about your thoughts on Breeze and where it's at and what some of the cool things that you've done inside of HubSpot using their AI, what you've seen, what you've done.
Yeah, I'm floored with like the direction that it's heading. So Assistant, the ability to create custom agents directly inside of HubSpot, the fact that it's context aware, like all of this is really cool functionality. So I'll give you a few use cases of I pride myself on, I think it's on my website, which I'll call out here for a second, but essentially I co-build implementations. So I work one-on-one with admins, stakeholders of their HubSpot account to build out your accounts. But I don't really like building out in production. I think I do sandbox first development. And the reason for that is you have to learn and explore what HubSpot is capable of through the process of building. And it's like a product. So we have to iterate based on that feedback and based on how you maybe share what was built internally with all the other people who interact with the HubSpot account. So I call that out because what I'm able to do and what I've been doing is I will have my conversations with my clients. We will take all of our transcripts, I'll upload them to a Claude project. And then I will use kind of just my experience, knowledge, and know-how to come up with a plan in Claude. And that plan could include a data model recommendation. So a couple examples that I can point to is a recent one that I did for building out a partner object and commission tracking. So a client of mine needed to kind of track their partners and partner relationships. They had a complex hierarchy. And Claude and Assistant helped me build the custom object and help me build all the properties in Sandbox, and literally just asked Assistant. I said, hey, go build these properties of these types. If it's like a single select, I provided the values. It gave me a little, hey, here's what we're going to build for you. I clicked OK, and the object, the associations, the properties, everything was built. And that was just like an aha moment for me of like, oh my goodness. Now I'm in Sandbox. I can actually engage with Assistant and say, pull the schema for that custom object, right, in JSON format. And I can go take that and give it to the assistant in the production instance, right? And it will go and rebuild that information. So no more like button clicking, more conversational admin work, but strategic and in like intentional. And that type of work I was never really, I'd say never really able to do like before AI. It didn't really interest me. It wasn't as strategic as I needed it to be. Now it is. Now it's very impactful. So I hope I answered the question. Yeah.
No, yeah. It's really amazing being able to take things that used to be so technical that it would be beyond the grasp of many admins' abilities, because it really fell into the territory of being a developer. And being a full stack developer is, I mean, there's truly a reason that it's its own standalone role.
Mm-hmm.
And so being able, though, to, as an admin, dip your toes into that world and create apps like this. I mean, we're literally seeing Replit creating this live for us. And again, the application carries over into what we can do into HubSpot so strongly, because now it's truly, if you can imagine it, if you can dream it, you can build it. And so being able to apply that to HubSpot in a strategic way, I think is so neat. It's such an exciting time.
So yeah, moving back to the apps, we do have now a UI. It says connect your Slack workspace, which I know we need to do. I will do this, but I'm pretty sure it's going to fail because we haven't provided all of the redirect URLs that are needed for OAuth to be successful. I'm going to click it and see what happens. So see, something went wrong. So what I can do, notice how it says redirect URI did not match any configured. So I can this is all I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this. And I'm going to paste it here and send it. Oh, let's stop that. Let's delete the queue and let's just paste the message. Now, this is something that we'll have to work on, but so a couple things to show here is like I'm inside of like Replit's interface. If you click on this icon to open up in a new tab, you'll actually see like the URL of the environment that you're developing on. This is going to be very important for you to kind of like use, because it's the callback URL. It's like, well, once you have successful authentication on the Slack side, where do you want to go? How do you want to be like sent back to the system? So we're waiting for it to kind of do its thing. But let's see. So, and it tells you, so get your Replit domain. Here's your URL, which I just showed in the URL up here. Update your Slack settings and make sure that you specify redirect URLs. And I need to it tells me, it's like telling, go copy this into your app. Like, okay, I'll go do that. And here it is, redirect URLs. I haven't added anything, so I'm going to specify. And then it needs to use HTTPS. I can add that, save it. We need to reinstall it, because anytime that you have a permissions change or configuration change, you have to reauthorize those changes. We have a success. Now we can refresh our development environment. Click on the connection. Something went wrong. Did not. Maybe I need to actually deploy that. Save the changes in Slack. Okay, I've added the URL to Slack. Redirect URI did not match any configured URIs. Try going back to updated and authorizing again. So maybe we need to do this, reinstall your app. Just do it a few times and see what happens. Let's try that again. So I open up this into my own browser, connect Slack. Yeah, and this is like a normal experience though. This doesn't make me frustrated. It just helps me uncover, like using AI or just from experience, like what my next step should be. Very common experience though. I mean, you'd be doing the same thing in Zapier, right? Running the Zap and seeing what the API response was or what was sent or what errors there were. So all very common behaviors.
The only difference, is here we can ask the prompt different ways. How do I solve this? Whereas if you go to Zapier or other similar apps, you're really left to your own devices to figure out those next steps. Now, this isn't the step where we have to invite it into the coffee chat channel, is it?
I don't believe so. I think this is just making sure that I believe this is all permissions driven. And I think it's possible that like we needed to do a deployment or reset the app in some way to collect those changes.
So it could be even that Replit just needs more time to process more of the code and like build more on the back end, right?
Possibly. We're gonna check it, and I can say, and I'm gonna check the settings here. So So it's still doing its thing. Let's wait for this to finish. I think there's something that it needs to do with routes. Let's see.
And anytime you're building something in a platform like this, it's going to be circular. You're going to run into things like this that pop up. But historically, as a developer, one would go in, write the code, something would break, and then they'd have to go and debug that code. And so here, as someone, even yourself, who isn't extremely versed in actually like coding and development and writing code from scratch, it is still very possible to even get through hurdles like this and still build the app, which is something that 2 or 3 years ago, as of when we're recording this, that wouldn't have been possible. And so it's pretty amazing even being able to get to this point where we're connecting the OAuth and we're setting it up. And I mean, it's building the splash page for you. It's pretty amazing that all of this is really served to you.
Yeah, it brings development closer to real users, or like people that didn't spend, I never got a career, like a education in computer science. I was always interested in it, but it's definitely brought it down. Like it's reachable now, if that makes sense. Like building apps and building solutions is now much more attainable and cost effective and super value add. And that's kind of like where I see the world going. And a lot of what I try to provide is like, we know that you can do so much in HubSpot and that we can do so much with your organization, but there is like a reality now of like things that you think take a lot of time. They take a lot less time and a lot less effort, but where you really need to spend most of your time, 80% of the time, is on the requirements gathering and on the clarity and on the change management and the alignment. Is like, I think I spent 2 months aligning a client of mine on improved subscription management processes, just so that they could see what future state might look like. And because it had integrated NetSuites, it had an integrated NetSuite integration, because it had complex workflows and legacies, things that were going on, like the change management is where a lot of the effort kind of happens, but and getting the alignment on future state. That is the bulk of the work now, the consulting, the collaborative communication, the context sharing. And I pride myself on being embedded with organizations as well, which is like, I'm kind of there in all of your Slack channels and conversations and getting clarity, not email back and forth, not delayed, not like very difficult to follow, but like inside of your org, which is where the value needs to be like captured, and then you need to translate it. Research a lot. So yeah, I'll keep wanting to go down this path. So we have the redirect URL, we have the scopes, we have none of that. Reinstall.
If you're a Sprocketeer and you want to join the coffee chat with Ryan and I, make sure that you join the Sprocketeer community. Every single week, we pair up members randomly who opt into the coffee chats, and that could be you meeting somebody new every single week, chatting about HubSpot or life. HubSpot gets stressful. There's a lot to be done. So join the coffee chat and meet new people every single week. Well, that was fun.
Awesome. And yeah, so OAuth looks like it's working now. So the issue was in code, we had HTTP instead of HTTPS. So that's all good. But now we're being redirected. This is like a thing that's happening. So you can see it. It's like, I click this, I no longer get that error message. I click allow, but now I kind of come right back to this, and it looks like OAuth failed. So I'm getting redirected back to this. Redirected back to. So what's good is we're not getting that initial error. It's just also, I think it's really fascinating how each time you do this, like the way that it themed everything, right, with the purple and like this whole screen just seems a bit off compared to what this
Coffee Slack
chat. Like this is the branding that the first iteration kind of came around to doing. And it's just funny, you're in a whole new chat environment, and based on what context you gave it and any type of design requirements that were provided, like that's one thing that my prompt didn't do. I didn't say, well, theme it like a coffee shop, or theme it like Sprocketeer community, or theme it like my brand, right? I didn't give it any of that. So it's using its kind of like system to make some assumptions, which I think is pretty funny.
Now that could be updated. We can give it a new prompt and say, hey, let's make this orange, and it'll just recode everything so it uses that new color theme, right?
Correct. Exactly that. Yeah. There are different stages here where you have build, plan, and edit. I would say you would move it to like an edit mode to edit the design or the layout, not necessarily change any of the functionality. So these are some different modes that you can leverage inside. And then there's other things like app testing that's native and built in and new. There are different autonomy levels. So whether or not you want it to use low, medium, or high autonomy, I mean, you've got a ton of options on how you want to leverage it. Now, this is a paid app, right? I pay monthly for it per user. I get a certain number of credits a month that I can leverage against the AI models and the functionality. I can always pay for more, but it's a hell of a lot cheaper than hiring a developer to build, these little lightweight applications like this.
This is pretty amazing. So, of course, here we are, end of the episode, and we got through to setting up a landing page and getting the core details plugged in. And I think the thing that really strikes me as just being most amazing is how easy it is to go from an initial idea to starting things in motion. Now, I wouldn't expect that in 30 minutes, we build a full application with 0 bugs. That would be pretty amazing. But what we have done is, in the scope of this conversation, taken an idea, plugged it into a GPT, refined a prompt, plugged it into Replit, although anyone listening can use other apps too. And then we've started in motion the process of building this app. And this whole thing really took about 30 minutes to get it going. I know that when you and I were doing this on the first go round, it took maybe 3, 4, 5 hours to actually build the full app, which is now being used in a production setting. So it's just amazing to me that anybody, regardless of technical expertise, really can go in, start building apps like this, and again, start to improve things in the HubSpot ecosystem as they have ideas, they spot solutions, and then we create apps to bridge the gaps on these pain points. So Ryan, thank you for walking us through building out the Coffee Chat app and everything that's gone into it. I think that we are definitely going to need to do more Build With Me episodes and build more things together. But before we end, do you have any advice for anybody that wants to get started, or somebody who maybe is watching this episode and even at this point they're feeling like, I don't know where even to go from here?
I think you have to play around with the tools. You have to jump in and try. I like to think that everyone on their day-to-day is like, I'd like to think that people like can jump in and just start to figure this stuff out. Maybe it's a personality thing for me, but I believe we're at like an email moment or a internet moment, right? Where we're given a whole new tool set and new things change every day. And like, if I would just try to stay on top of all of that and jump in and test things out. You can use ChatGPT or Claude to help you with simple ideas for a tool like Replit. So it's like, use AI to like help you build AI. And any use case that you come across in your day-to-day, AI can help you refine the idea, focus on the minimum viable like steps, can also coach or educate you on what maybe knowledge you're missing if you want to go deeper on a subject. It's all kind of like there, and all you need to do is be curious. So stay curious, understand that we are in a transformative moment, I think, with this technology stack. The fact that I'm here building an app live with you, Cameron, like that was not my career path at all. The fact that I've got multiple little custom scripts for different use cases, making API calls to LLMs, that was not my career path. But here I am, and I'm so excited about it because the amount of value that I can now give to people who hire me or potential employers or even you and other colleagues is immense. So deliver value wherever you can, get curious, and use the tools that literally have been trained on all knowledge. So understand the power that gives you, and you should be able to figure things out or unblock yourself at any step of the way, should you choose that's what you want to do.
Yeah, and if you're still listening to this and you followed this far and you are excited, but maybe you don't know where to go from here, drop a comment, let us know, reach out to Ryan and myself on LinkedIn, but let us know, what type of apps would you be excited to build, or what apps have you built in the ecosystem? And if it's something that you want to build, but you feel like you are stumped, let the community know, because we've got Ryan, we've got a ton of amazing members of the community who are really not only skilled, but passionate about bridging the gap between artificial intelligence and solving the pain points in the ecosystem. So anytime you've identified any pain points in the HubSpot ecosystem, let community members know, and let's build these type of things together, because clearly Ryan enjoys it. He's good at it. And I'm excited to be able to do this type of stuff myself as I learn more about artificial intelligence and dig into these things.
Thank you for tuning in to the SprocketPod podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode with your co-hosts, Cameron Collins and Mark Lerner. Be sure to catch us live every week on LinkedIn, and don't forget to subscribe to our episodes on YouTube and Spotify. If you found this episode valuable, please leave a review and share it with others looking to get more from HubSpot. Until next time, keep driving success with your CRM, and as always, Sprocket on.